Hi everyone, my name is Anna at Migrant Dr. Mom, and thank you so much for finding time to join me today. So today I'll be talking about tips for packing for migration to Australia. So if you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. And if you're a returning subscriber, thanks again for your ongoing support, for watching the videos, for commenting, for sharing, and for everything else that you do behind the scenes. Thank you. So now let's dive in and talk about what are some of the things that I've learned in my travels and when I was migrating, what are some of the mistakes I did so that you can try and avoid those and learn from my experiences and be able to have a very smooth transition and a very smooth experience even as you migrate to Australia. Okay, so I think what I'm going to cover is almost like a checklist that you can use and put it side by side even as you travel, even as you plan to travel, so that you are taking against it to make sure that you're not leaving anything important, but at the same time to make sure that you're not packing unnecessarily, because most times than not we end up packing what we don't need and actually forget the most important things that we need to pack. So the first thing to consider that's very important is to know which city are you going to. I find this to be very important because this is Australia. It has a couple of cities, and it's very important to know that some cities like Tasmania, it's very, very cold. So you may need to put in mind, that climate in the city that you're going to so that you can be better informed so that you pack accordingly. But also the other important thing to know is what season you're coming, because my strong belief or my strong suggestion is to try and pack things that you'll need for the next 6 months, because I suppose if you're like what I was, like in my shoes, you wouldn't be buying anything for the first 6 months. It's probably very expensive process that you've had to go through. Money may be scarce, and obviously starting life in a new land, you'll need accommodation, you'll need a car, you'll need a lot of things. So it's probably important to save yourself a little bit more by avoiding, unnecessary purchases early on in your arrival to Australia. So know the city that you're going to, know the next 2 seasons that you're coming. So if you're traveling like in December, remember it will be summer, and then after that it will be autumn, and then winter, and then spring. Yes. So it's very important to know your next 2 seasons, and then hopefully you can pack, some things around the season that you'll be coming to. Okay. And then the other important thing to remember is even as you pack, have on your biggest checklist is to be in line. Like when you're choosing your luggage, your luggage bags, it's very important to choose good luggage bags that are a bit durable. Remember, even as you transition from one airport to the other, there's handling of your goods. You don't want your luggage to arrive torn, things, thrown around, missing this, missing this. You'd rather just invest yourself in a good hard case luggage that's going to, to withstand the tortures of moving. And if you are like me, if you're coming in a job like myself, like doctoring, you don't know whether you'll need to move again very soon. So it's quite important to remember that those luggage bags are going to come in quite handy even as you transition around, Australia. So before you sort of finally settle like I have now, you'll still be moving a little bit. So it's quite important to invest yourself in quite good bags that you're likely to use, that are durable. So importantly, check with your airline. Be sure what you're supposed to, to carry in terms of the weight and the dimensions of your travel. Most of the times you will probably, if you're traveling economy, you'll probably be given 23 big bags and maybe a hand luggage of 7. And if you're traveling business, you probably get a little bit more, I think from memory, 32, and the hand luggage may be 15. And you are allowed as a lady a personal effects bag that they don't have a limit, so you can probably, indulge yourself and take the biggest bag available and put your stuff in there. Yeah, don't mention this to the airlines, but yeah, that's what you can probably do. So invest yourself in 2 bags according to your airline requirements, have a hand luggage, and then have your personal, effects bag that you're going to find useful. And next on your checklist is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit more extensively is what you need to pack, what you need to actually put in those bags. So remember your hand luggage is what you will carry around onto the flight, okay? Your checked in luggage will, as soon as you get to the airport, will be checked in, and you will, if you're making a transition, if you're transiting, you will probably get your luggages when you land in Australia, let's say Perth or wherever you're landing. So your hand luggage is what you will carry with you throughout. And remember, sometimes some of the airports that you're going to go through are quite big airports, and you may need to, travel quite a lot and walk a lot. So you want to make sure that you have a good bag, preferably if it can even be on wheels. That's going to be even handy for you, and make sure it's in line with the airline guidelines in terms of sizing. And even as you pack, remember the next thing on your checklist, you need to pack your documents. I always say don't leave this for last. That's always the first thing that I pack when I'm packing is my documents, because your documents are so important depending on what you're coming to do. Like for myself as a doctor, I was coming to work. The first thing that I needed to do is take in my original certificates to be verified. So it's very important, was important for me to pack first my certificates, my work my educational certificates, my work certificates. I actually forgot to pack my kids' vaccination books and stuff like that. And just remember to put all your documents, all your important documents, your driver's license, your passports, your kids' reports if they're needed for school, and a few other important documents. Make sure they're in your hand luggage, because what sometimes can happen with your checked-in luggage, sometimes checked-in luggage actually gets lost. You don't want your important documents getting lost or being left behind, coming back to you a month later when you need them as soon as you land. So very important to do that. And hopefully in another video, I'll actually talk to you about the specific documents you need to remember to pack. So pack your documents in your hand luggage. And the other important thing that will come in your checklist would be your electronics. So obviously there are some of those electronics that you can leave behind at home, and there are those that you will need when you arrive. Like for those who are coming to study, students, and those who are coming to work, I suppose your laptop and your phone is quite important. Those two are quite important that need to be packed. Remember to pack away your chargers, and if you're traveling, remember to pack also your travel sort of chargers with the right plugs. Pack that. You can actually, check online and check that airport, what's the type of plug it uses and stuff like that, so that you make sure you're well prepared for your travel. So pack your electronics. I found it quite handy to, remember all your battery and your lithium batteries need to be in your hand luggage as well, because they're not allowed in your checked-in luggage. So be mindful of those things even as you pack. And obviously, remember, in most of the checkpoints, the security checkpoints, you need to be able to, quickly remove your laptop, put it on top, and stuff like that. So if you have, a hand luggage that has multiple pockets, that would even be more handier for you to transition through from security to security. So that's the next point. The next point to remember is, think about your grooming. What will you need for your grooming services? I remember for me, what I really missed and I wish I would have carried was a blow dryer for my kids' hair, It may sound really minimal, but I found that to be quite inconveniencing, because if you come to Australia, you'll notice that a lot of the blow dryers are made for the Caucasian hair. They don't have, the capacity to blow dry properly our African kinky hair. So it's quite important to think about that. And I wish I had carried my Kenyan blow dryer. It would have come in handy. My husband's clippers, so he's, shaving and stuff like that. That's quite handy as well, because obviously it will take you a while before you figure out where the barber and stuff like that, and probably it will not be on top of your list even as you settle in. So those are some of the things that you may find are helpful. Think about those grooming things that you need to pack, and then remember to think about your clothing, because obviously clothing will consist the bulk of your luggage. Okay, so when you're packing, be mindful of the season, like I said, and be mindful of the place that you're going. So even as you pack, step by step, think about your day-to-day activity. If you're a student, I would probably recommend carrying a couple of, white and black t-shirts, carry probably a pair of pants, carry some jeans, carry, look at, remember, Australia is called multicultural. And there will be different communities, different community events. Remember to carry at least one or two, of your attire. African attire is whether it's Indian attire, African attire, Maasai attire, or whatever attire that you use for your traditional functions. Remember to put that and pack it away, because they may, be quite hefty to buy out here. And you may not be able to find people that make the way that you would like them to be done. So be mindful of such small things. And again, if you're coming in the cooler months, think about carrying a comfortable jumper. Think about carrying a few sweaters and sweatpants and hoodies that are going to come in handy, because remember, as a student, and especially if you don't have a car and you're using public transport, during the wet months it can be quite rainy without warning. So it's very, very important to invest yourself in those warm attire to be able to survive the cooler months. Also think about, be mindful of the flight itself as well. Most of Australia is really far. I mean, I find, the longer leg of your flight, let's say if you're traveling from, Qatar to here, or Dubai to here, it's about 10 hours or 11 hours, depending on which one. And the flights, especially if they're at night, can be very cold. So be mindful of what you wear and what you carry to use on the flight as well. So be mindful of what you pack. And, if you're a church goer and Sunday best, and you are used to doing lots of suits back at home, they may not come in very handy, because people here don't wear a lot of suits. I think I never wore a few of my skirt suits, so I think they just filled up the extra luggage that would have come in handy for me. So be mindful of such things, and the culture differences and things that you're likely to get out here. So whatever may work really best for home, and also depending on the job that you're working. Whereas myself as a doctor, skirt suits and trouser suits would not have come in handy, somebody else who's coming into work as a lawyer may actually need them, or somebody who's working in a high-end managerial job would probably need them for those meetings and stuff like that. But so just be mindful of the culture and the space that you're coming into. And if you're coming in as a student, be mindful also of the type of, college and the course that you're coming into, and pack accordingly for that. The next thing to think about is obviously footwear. Do remember to carry a good set of, sneakers, and a good set of one pair of official shoes, and, some closed shoes, and obviously carry yourself some, what Australians call, you can get them here, thongs, which you can easily get for $2 or something like that. And obviously, depending on what you like, I find, I couldn't do without a Maasai shoe. So it's something that I would highly, recommend you pack if you're somebody that likes to do that. Yeah. And then think about, when you're thinking about bedding, I would say, look at where you're going to be staying. Okay, so when you come to Australia, people settle in differently. There are people that are going to get hosted, there are people that are going to get into an Airbnb, and there are people that are going to get into a hotel, and then there are people that are going to get, like students, that are going to get a student accommodation. Okay, so it's very important to know where you're getting yourself into. So if it's like a hotel, most of the time it will have the basic amenities that you need, so you may not really need to pack heavy for bedding. But if you're coming in as a student and you cash is hard and you're not sure where you're going to be staying, I would probably recommend have at least one pair of sheets, good cotton sheets, and probably have some, just some basic, towels and, some basic, things that you can use. Obviously, carrying a duvet may be tricky, especially because of luggage and space. So that's something that probably you could, start off by getting it in one of the op shops or the secondhand shops. You can easily find one. So be mindful of where you're going and pack your bedding according to where you're going. If you're getting hosted, be sure to know how long you're going to get hosted, and be sure to know whether after that where you're going into, so that you pack accordingly for that. Very, very important. The other next thing on my checklist is food. So this is a topic that is a whole topic on itself, what to carry in terms of food. But I'll give you a bit of basics. Just be aware there's some foods that are not allowed in Australia, especially, meats, pork, fruits. They're not allowed by the border, security, because obviously of risks to the flora and fauna in Australia. So they will not be allowed in. And if you come in with them, obviously there's a fine and stuff like that. But I found in my situation, packing things like spices were quite beneficial for me. And I love my omena, the small fish, my omena. I always pack my omena when I travel because I find packing spices, especially if you're new to a place. Remember, if you've watched my video of settling in Australia or adjusting in Australia, you will notice, before you know where to get what, you should be, geared yourself, at least, your taste buds, you, like in my case, my Kenyan taste buds are completely different from Australian. So if I come in with a bit of my spices, for me, my Royco is quite key. And my tea masala, my pilau masala just helps me, have that sense of home, have that sense of like having my own, my little Kenyan in my house, and just make something, with the spices. So quite important to think about what you want to carry. Even as you travel into Australia, and also being mindful of the border force security measures that are in place. What's the other thing? The last important thing to remember is if you're on medications, remember to pack your medications. Okay. If you move into a new country, and even for traveling purposes, it's very important to get your medications in the boxes, pack them in the bot boxes, and get a letter from your physician stating so and so is on this list of medications, because those are some of the things anyway you need to declare to the border force. You need to have your medications listed, described, you're on this and this and this. And the other important reason why you should carry them is because it will take you a while before you know your next GP, because it may not be as easy as home, where you just step into any available doctor's office and you see somebody. Out here, it may take you a few days before you can get in to see someone. And depending on the busyness of the practice, it may take you even up to a week before you can get someone who's available. So very important to make sure that you have a bit of a good supply of your medicines, so that you're not inconvenienced. And also, have them in names clearly indicated, so that people know what you're on, and therefore they find it easier just to, that little handover from your primary doctor at home, they are able to hand it over to the doctors here. So that's just, a bit of, a checklist that I use myself when I'm traveling. And I hope you, even as you plan to travel, even as you pack away, you can actually just, print that sort of list, put it on the side and tick boxes as you go along and say, look, I've packed this, this is pending, this is pending, and make sure that you pack appropriately for coming into the country so that you're well settled in and so that you're not in trouble as well. I hope you find this content helpful, and if it is, please share it with your friends. If you know somebody that's about to travel to Australia, share this with them so that they are better informed. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you, and God bless you.